Maniac is imminent. Request advice.
With a firm tone of voice, demand Maniac lie down with hands behind back.
Simon Phoenix, lie down with your hands behind your back.
What's this? 6 of you. Such nice, tidy uniforms.
Oh, I'm so scared. What, you guys don't have sarcasm anymore?
Maniac has responded with a scornful remark.
Approach and repeat ultimatum in an even firmer tone of voice. Add the words, or else.
Simon Phoenix, lie down on the ground, or else.
Hello and welcome to another day in paradise. Today I want to discuss with you whether African Americans are ready to repatriate to the continent, whether they are mentally ready to repatriate to the continent. But first I'm going to ask you to please like, subscribe, share and click the bell notification. Why African Americans again? Why do you always single out African Americans? Well, there is a reason for this, and I am going to get to it later, but first of all I'm going to tell you the reason why I thought about making this video in the first place. So yesterday I was watching a video which was an interview given by Philip Scott, who runs the African Diaspora News Network, a YouTube channel, a good one, a good new YouTube channel which I would suggest you follow. Now Philip Scott is African American, and there were these rumors going around that that Renee Marcus, who was being interviewed, that Renee Marcus was very anti-American and she had anti-American sentiments. And I have to be honest with you, I do believe that. I believe she does. I think she's very nationalistic. So yeah, can you imagine that? A nationalistic diasporan with a British accent doesn't really go down well in the African American community. So I knew that he was going to probe her a little bit. And I knew, of course, the Art Cathy situation was going to be brought up. And when he did bring it up, I'm going to have to show you part of the video which made me think this, but take a look for yourself.
So when we get angry and we looking at things of the abuses or the misuse of Gambian people, or we want to lash out or go off, it's kind of like the protectionism that a lot of times that we have with our own people, because we like, okay, we coming from America, right? We refuse to sit there and let some other group of people disrespect, abuse, take advantage of our people on the continent. We're like, hell no, I'm that way. I refuse to let it happen. I mean, you understand kind of like where I'm coming from with that?
Yes, I do. But in regards to that, it also, because that's the American culture you're talking about. And you would have to understand... I'm talking about the Black American
culture. I'm not talking about America. There's a difference.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So with the Black American culture, it's completely different to the African culture. So with Africans in the continent, when you've actually seen something that has actually happened or something that's about to happen and you don't like it because you know that, okay, I can see danger, or this has actually started damaging something, there's a way you can actually sit with your people and explain it to them or try to educate them rather than just blashing it out there to them in a very harsh way, as if that's how it is, that's how you're going to say it. Because I see that a lot of African Americans, when they see something happening within the continent or within, let's say, the community that they live, they would just basically blash it out exactly how it is, with no filter whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Africans can find that very offended. Like, we would not take that. you would have to say it in a very respectful way for us to actually digest it. That's just the way that we are. And I believe that if someone is actually moving to someone else's country, you would have to learn the culture and also learn the way those people actually do things, and not do it your way. Because you need to think, if you do it your way, the way that you've been brought up, would that actually affect the people in that specific country that you're trying to help? Because there might be some truth in what you're saying, but we might not see it, because all we will see is the harshness you've actually came out to actually deliver that message to save us.
Right. Well, I do no, as a like myself, me personally, I do have an approach, to, it depends on the situation. There's a time that I may approach real aggressive, and then it may be a time I may approach, let me teach something for a minute. So it depends on the situation, right? But that's why I was saying is we need to learn each other's culture, because we all have different ways of expressing ourselves. Yes, I understand that the way we come across to continental Africans, at times they could be like, they're abusing me, the way they're talking. But we're not being abusive. We just, a lot of times, a lot of us are really blunt, right? We just put it out there because no one is going to, like, here in America, nobody's going to hold you by the hand and say, well, Philip, it's this, it's that. No, that's just not the way America works.
He, to a certain degree, that is Philip Scott, in the interview, starts to make excuses for Art Cathy's behavior. And I have been seeing this trend amongst African American YouTubers. I've been seeing this trend of people not being openly condemning her for her actions. They've either been silent or they've been very, very soft on her, one or the other. Maybe they know something that I don't. But I just find it strange that no one has openly condemned her for the way she has been speaking about the native Gambians. Sort of like, you got the American police and they have this sort of blue code of silence where they don't speak to anybody, they don't tell on any of their colleagues about anything. It was kind of like that. I have a feeling that they are kind of like that, like they have this sort of loyalty towards one another, more so than definitely towards any other diaspora, and absolutely they hold more loyalty towards themselves as an ethnicity than say the native Africans from any African country. So I asked myself this. I asked, why is this the case? I mean, it's pretty clear cut that Art Cathy is in the wrong. It's not only that, it's clear cut that there is something going on with her, perhaps mentally. So what is going on? How do we come to recognize it and do something about it? So anyway, back to what I was saying earlier. I singled out African Americans. Why did I do that? Because African Americans have been raised in America, and the United States of America was, for a country, for a very long time, a country filled with people that were very unwilling to travel outside the United States. They were, for all intents and purposes, afraid of what they were going to find out there. It was more comforting for them in the 1980s and the 1990s to sit back and have somebody tell them what the world was like on their television screens. It was much easier for them to do that. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't need to travel. I know what Africa is like. It's a terrible place. I'm not going there. Yeah? We live in paradise. They want to come here. So why am I going there for? So you had that sort of, you had that sort of sentiment coming out from people because they were being taught the wrong things by the mainstream media. So what do you have now? It led up to a point in which you had a lot of people who were African American who did not travel. You had a lot of European Americans who also did not travel. In the 1980s and the 1990s, only 30% of Americans held a passport. Which was incredible to me. It grew to 40%. 40% of Americans had a passport after 2001 because of some sort of change in the law where you needed to have a passport in order to for Americans to cross into Mexico and into Canada. So before that, they were able to cross. They didn't need any sort of passport. They just needed to identify themselves as an American. They had to identify themselves. So yeah, it's crazy. People have this sense of what is happening in the world, and they have used mainstream media vicariously to tell them, to teach them, to educate them about what is going on in the wider world, which we all know is a very bad thing. We know what mainstream media are like, and we know how the powers that be use the mainstream media to manipulate us into thinking that there is no other place on earth that is better than the United States of America. So this brings us to a state where we have a group of people, a large quantity of people that have never left the United States. They've never left the United States, so they've never had to adapt to a different culture. They've never had to assimilate into a different culture. They have also, never had to learn a different language. Okay? They've never bathed themselves, completely immersed themselves into a different culture. And you have these people now who are trying to get to Africa. So, and if you've been to Africa yourself, you would know that the culture clash is real. It is very real. So with European African diasporans, European-based African diasporans, it was easy for us to travel 200 miles. If we say in the UK, it was easy for me to travel 200 miles to the south of London and be in Paris. It was easy for me to travel 200 miles to the east and be in the Netherlands, be in Amsterdam. Completely different. 1.5 hour flight and you're in Barcelona from London. It was very easy to submerge yourself into multiple different cultures and environments. It was cheap for us to do it, and we didn't need any paperwork or anything like that. We could just go to these places. So we are more adapted to being able to assimilate into different cultures, societies, and peoples. So we are not going to struggle as much. Sorry, I've got a bloody fly that keeps landing on me. Okay, it's gone. Yeah, so like I was saying, we as European-based African diasporans, we are able and have been able to adapt to these multiple different cultures much easier. So we know how to do it, basically. We've also had way more contact with so-called Sub-Saharan Africans in Europe because of the colonies of France and the United Kingdom. So we had a lot of West Africans, especially West Africans, coming into the United Kingdom and into France. So we as West Indians were able to interact, and we got along to a certain degree with them. It's quite funny. Now that I look back at it, you know, I can sense that there were apprehensions to, especially East Africans, Kenyans, wanting to have anything to do with us West Indians, which is quite funny. The only Kenyans I knew were doctors. Yeah, the only Kenyans I knew were doctors. And when one of my daughters was born in the hospital, her mother was, you know, had to undergo surgery afterwards, and a Ghanaian doctor was the doctor who put her together, and he must have been 25, and he was brilliant. This guy he's an artist, really. This surgeon was an artist, and he was young. I don't know what he's doing now, but my daughter's 5 years old now, so if you're out here and you're watching this, thank you very much. Anyway, so through the 70s, the 80s and the 90s, we as Afro-Caribbeans, we'd say, West Indies, were able to generate a type of rapport with the Africans who were from the continent, the continental Africans who had moved to the diaspora in later years. So we have a lot more knowledge of African cultures, a lot more than the African Americans. Another reason I asked is because you have these African Americans who have somewhat been in a war. They have been in a war. They've been in a war type situation since they landed on Plymouth Rock. I swear they have been there fighting for their lives, and they have adapted into this sort of warrior type status where they feel like they need to battle for everything. And I think us African diasporans living in Europe, we had it much easier than what they did anyway. So we were sort of coveted to a certain degree by the natives in the United Kingdom. Maybe not so much in France. France is a terrible place for anybody, if I need to tell you this. I might be being biased, but I think it is. But definitely it's been easier for us, and now they're moving to Africa, and they may have battle fatigue, racial battle fatigue, the effects that many soldiers have going into war-like situations and then leaving it and coming back home. They will have this. That you got to remember, they will have this, and then they're going to move into these African communities, and the combination of that, along with the problems of trying to assimilate and adapt and not doing that on a regular basis before, and also, you know, having this inexorable need to find the fight in everything. I think we could be looking at some major problems here. There is another video that I watched. I'm not going to show you it, but in the interview there was a gentleman that had moved from the United States, an African American guy, had moved to Ghana, and he said something brilliant, something which resonated with me since I watched it. He said that before the year of return, there should have been a year of redemption, a year of reflection, a year of healing. I agree with that 100%, because there are many people who are going to need healing, who are going to go to Africa, who are going to think that who are going to be hit with this culture shock. They're going to be hit with the culture shock, and they're going to struggle. And what we don't want is people coming from the diaspora, coming into Africa, not just causing problems, but being a problem for themselves, and then leaving and going back into the diaspora again. We want people to come to Africa and stay there and say, wow, this is it, this is what we want. So I think, for me, this gentleman in this interview was 100% right. I think that not just the continentals, but I think us, from the other, especially the diasporans in Europe, we will need to help our African American brothers and sisters to adapt and assimilate into African society, and I think we're going to need to help them to heal as well, because they're going to need healing. We're going to need healing as well. I think we, as the European-based African diaspora, are going to have more of that work to help heal the African Americans, because a lot of the continentals need healing too. You've seen it for yourself. A lot of them are in trouble themselves because they have this really strange relationship that they have developed with the Mzungus. So a lot of their mindsets are going to need changing as well. And I think that us, the diaspora, and the continentals, both the African Americans and the African diaspora living in Europe, are going to have to all work together. Unity. It all comes back to unity, and I'm hoping that we can build these institutions which will help everybody with these aspects of moving back to the continent. So, do any of you have any problems? Do you think? And if you think that you're going to have any problems when moving back to Africa, please let me know in the description box below. It would be good to hear from you guys. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to thank you for watching. And yeah, I'm also going to thank once again the new subscribers, and I will see you the next time. Ta-ra a bit.